Hello, and welcome to my PowerPoint on the weirdest jokers in Balatro. Now, I do have to preface that I'm not saying that this is like a top 10 list or anything, but these are some of the 10 weirdest jokers that I find in Balatro. Now, what I mean by weird is that they either change the way that you think about the game in some way, or they're just like really bad in a kind of weird way. Not all of them are bad, but I do have to preface that. Anyway, I wanted to talk about Madness like really badly. I think Madness is easily like becoming one of my favorite jokers to play with. It's unbelievably efficient for what it does. When small or big blind is selected, gain times 0.5 molt and destroy a random joker. Now, on paper, that might sound really, really bad, right? Oh, you're losing jokers for arguably a pretty good upside, but, you know, the joker loss must be the really bad part. Well, you don't need to destroy a joker to get the buff from Madness. That's why Madness is so good. Madness is one of the few jokers in the game that gets better when you play at higher stakes, specifically black stake, because at black stake is where eternal jokers come in. Eternal jokers cannot be destroyed by Madness. That means that Madness scales for free, which it scales very well. You can easily get your Madness up to like, I mean, it gets times 1 molt every ante, right? As long as you play both blinds, which you should be doing. So it actually gets like a lot of scaling, right? On top of, when you have an Eternal Joker, it not only makes your Eternal Jokers better, it's one of the only Jokers that really interacts with them in any way, because they, like, say if you have like a flat molt Joker that's Eternal, it'll make Madness go crazy, right? It works well with, like, Riff Raff. As you can see in the meme there, actually, it's an Eternal Riff Raff. It works very well with Riff Raff. And, like, the big different thing about Madness is that it does not function the same way as, like, Ceremonial Dagger, right? Ceremonial Dagger does have to destroy the card. That's kind of why Ceremonial Dagger really isn't that good. It needs to destroy something, and it can't just, like, work with Eternal Jokers, right? While Madness does. And Madness, it's very, very powerful and very efficient. Like I said, you can realistically get it to, like, times 3 or 4 or higher molt, and if you're getting it to that high, it's a very, very powerful Joker. For the fact that it still can scale further, right? It's not, of course, it's not like the greatest Joker of all time in Endless, right? It still will keep scaling, but by that point, you know, destroying your Jokers is going to be pretty bad. Madness is mainly just, you know, I want to beat 8 ante on gold stake. It's really, really good for that. Oh, and basically every deck, I don't think there's any deck that you would specifically not want Madness in, except for, I guess, Black deck, because it kind of defeats the entire purpose of Black deck, right? Because you want to have multiple Jokers, but Black deck also just is really hard to and really bad. So maybe Madness will help you win on Black deck if it's your first time playing, because it's a really strong Joker. Then we have Marble Joker. So I want to talk about Marble Joker because I kind of want to talk about stone cards. Marble Joker, of course, adds 1 stone card to the deck when blind is selected, right? So you can get 3 of them per ante. Stone cards are interesting, right? They're very useful if you have like a couple of them, right? You can fill out your hand, right? If you're playing 3 of a kind, you can just play 2 stone cards and you get plus 50, well, plus 100 chips, and it's pretty decent, right? But when you get to the levels of what you would get from a Joker like Marble Joker, where it fills your deck with having a lot of stone cards, it actually becomes a little detrimental. And you might be thinking, oh, but I can play, you know, 5 stone cards, and that's plus 250 chips. Yeah, it is, but it also makes it so your poker hand is a high card. And while high card isn't the worst, the main power of high card is kind of the fact that you get to hold a lot of cards in your hand. So you get what I'm saying, right? Now, like, of course, that's not the only way to play high card. You can play high card using stone cards, and it's not the worst. But, like I'm saying, stone cards do kind of change the way that you play around the actual cards in your deck in a way that, you know, not really many other Jokers do. And it's interesting. Marble Joker does have other synergies, of course. There's Stone Joker, which, you know, gets plus 25 chips for every stone card in your deck. Or it gives Hallucination a lot of molt, which is actually pretty solid. I'm not saying Marble Joker is a bad Joker by any means, but stone cards do, like, they really do change the way that you think about the game and think about the hands that you are playing, right? And that's... It's hard to describe the thoughts I'm having right now. I like, the way that I'm trying to word it is, because of the fact that stone cards don't form towards hands, but they are still playable in any hand that you're playing, makes it so that having a full deck of them really kind of feels bad. And because of the fact that you're not able to get as much consistency from your other hands. But but still, Stone Card's very powerful, and Marble Joker, it can be good in the right situations. There's no questioning that. Now, Idol is one of the most powerful Jokers in Balatro. What it does is each played rank of suit gives X to Molt when scored. That means is it looks through the cards in your deck. So say you have, a full deck of 52 cards, regular suits, right? It'll have a 1 in 52 chance to pick any card in your deck. But if you make it so your deck is only one card, say King of Spades, it'll make it so each played rank, which is King of suit, Spades, gives ×2 Molt when scored. That means that if you play it with a 5-card hand, like a flush 5, it'll multiply the Molt of the flush 5, which scales incredibly well, ×2, 5 times. Then you add on, glass cards and red seals and etc., right? It scales incredibly well. However, Idol does do incredibly well once you fully deck fixed, you have a lot of you spent a lot of time scaling, you try to get to it. It can be really powerful. However, it's an uncommon Joker, so you're going to find it early pretty typically, right? But it's one of, realistically, it's arguably one of the worst Jokers in a regular 8 ante run. Can it work? Most definitely. If you're playing like erratic deck, you can set it up very quickly. If you have really high access to like tarot cards from a lot of purple seals, etc., you can set it up by around like ante 7 or 8. You can do it. But it's really difficult. It's incredibly expensive, and it's not realistic for the vast majority of runs, which makes Idol in a weird state that, like, it really puts in a weird state that it kind of is one of, if not the worst Joker in these regular 8 ante runs. Like, even you consider, say, Perkio or Baron, other Jokers that are known for scaling very well, you need less deck fixing to get value out of those cards, or those Jokers, right? And deck fixing, like I said, it's time consuming, it's expensive, and there's not that many ways to do it. There are good ways to do it when you do find them. They are very strong, like say trading card, or like I said, with purple seal, etc. They are strong when you do find them, but they're not that common, which makes it so like the Idol, all that power is hidden away for a long time that it takes to get to and scale to it, which makes Idol very weird and awkward for many players. Now, I do have to admit, Idol is really fun to use, and it's very rewarding when you do get to use it, right? So weird might not be the appropriate word for it. It might be unique. I guess I can say, right? I'm the one making the video. Unique might be the better wording for Idol, but it's so nice. Of course, you might have been thinking this whole time, wait a minute, it gives ×2 Molt whenever you play that card. You mentioned Kings. There's a legendary Joker that does that. Yeah, Idol, I mentioned it before, it is an uncommon Joker that gives you the power of a legendary in Tribule. Tribule, of course, when you play Kings or Queens, gives ×2 Molt. So, that's crazy, right? That's where the deck fixing as the constraint comes in. Idol is a very well-designed Joker. I always say card. Well-designed Joker, in my opinion, and it's just super interesting. Then we get to Four Fingers. So, Four Fingers is incredibly unique. All flushes and straights can be made with 4 cards. Now, if you're playing it just as flushes or just as straights, it's not that great, right? It's okay. It's not the worst. For straights specifically, it's a little better, I find, because it's harder to make straights than flushes, so Four Fingers can be pretty valuable. But the real key value of Four Fingers is its ability to make straight flushes. Now, if you just read the text of Four Fingers and nothing else, you'd be like, oh, I guess it kind of makes sense that it makes a 4 flush, right? A straight flush. So down below, instead of the typical like little goofy meme I put down 2 scenarios that can create a straight flush for you. You could have a Queen of Spades, a Jack of Spades, a 10 of Spades, a 9 of Spades, and then a 2 of Spades. The Queen, Jack, 10, and 9 counts as a straight, but because you have all of these Jokers together, it'll count as a straight flush. Or Queen of Spades, Jack of Clubs, 10 of Spades, 9 of spades, and 8 of spades, this will also count as a straight flush. It's very, very interesting that the way that this Joker works, right? And this isn't even how, like, the most appropriate way. You can still do this with 4 cards. I just thought it would be easier to explain if I showed it as a regular straight, a regular flush, 5 cards, etc. That makes this Joker just super powerful because although straight flushes, usually are incredibly hard to get and you're not really ever going to get them, they scale amazingly. They're the they are the best scaling hand of any of the non-secret hands. I think they're tied for the second best scaling hand in the game, which is incredible. They start at 100 chips and 8 molt, if I believe, which is, huge. And straights already are incredibly interesting to play. Anyone that, doesn't really know how to play straights, I will give a brief explanation. Typically, when you're playing straights, you want to play through 10 through 5 is what I find, because it gives you the widest range. If you get, a little bit higher, you could play a jack, or a little bit lower, you could play a 4. You want to trim off, like, kings, queens, and aces, or, 3s, 2s, kind of 4s as well, I do have to admit, and jacks, eventually. Because when you're playing 10 through 5, it's the most consistent way to have as many, cards as possible without having too much blockage. And what I mean by that is, like, you can't play, like, king, ace, 2, 3, 4 as a straight, and so you can't have the wraparound. So it would not work that well. That's just a little pro tip for anyone wondering on straights. That's my opinion. I do believe that is correct from what I've seen other people as well. But I get this question a lot about why I do one thing or the other, why I say that about straights. So I just wanted to preface that a little bit. Obelisk is something, alright. Obelisk is arguably the hardest Joker in the game to use, and I don't know what really comes close. So the way Obelisk works is this Joker gains times 0.2 molt per consecutive hand played without playing your most played poker hand. Now, if you're just reading that for the first time, you'd be like, oh, I guess that isn't the hardest thing to do, but is it? So realistically, the best way to use Obelisk is to transition from playing like one hand to another. Say you get Obelisk on like ante 3 and you've played like 14 flushes at that point in the game, right? Well, when you take the Obelisk, you're like, okay, I guess I'm just going to play literally anything else, and as long as I don't play 14 of them, the Obelisk will scale and get, like, it'll keep going. So, say you have 14 flushes, and then, for the rest of the game, you play 10 pairs, you play, like, 8 high cards, 7 straights, a couple of 3 high, a couple full houses, right? I mean, if you're playing, like, 20 or 30 more hands for the rest of the game, your Obelisk, times 0.2 per consecutive hand played, times 0.2 times 30 is what? Times 6 molt? That's pretty good. And it's not the best, I do have to admit. It takes a while to get to that point, and it requires a lot of hands to be played to get to that point, which I do have to note, if you are an Obelisk transition, gamer, be careful for your first couple of hands. You're going to be very weak because, well, you can't play your most played hand. And usually your most played hand is your best hand. Although, if you do find Obelisk early, I do find it is better. Typically what I do is I will just play a metric shit ton of high cards. Like, I'll play like 20 or 30 high cards, right? As many as like the game will allow me to play. And I won't even start scaling my Obelisk until maybe like 2 or 3 antes after I get it. Now, that is very difficult to do, and sometimes backfires. I've definitely lost runs trying to do that. But when you get to that situation on your Obelisk, it's just free molt that you're going to be scaling for the rest of the game. Doesn't matter what hand you play, as long as you're not playing a high card. I think pair might be better for that scenario, personally, because there are some times you do just play high card because you don't have like the hand you need. Anyway, but when you do get to that point, Obelisk becomes very powerful. It's really, really powerful when you find it early. I find more powerful than even like that transition scenario I was talking about, which is technically the correct way to use it, but I just don't think it's that good in that scenario. Otherwise, Obelisk, like, I mean, I assume everyone watching this video has tried to use Obelisk in the past, maybe to some success. Maybe they'll only get like a little bit of molt out of it, but it's a very, very, very hard Joker to use, and it's just not the greatest, I do have to say. I think if it were just buffed a little bit, maybe like times 0.25 molt, so it takes 4 hands to get 1 molt instead of 5, it could be a little bit better, I think, but I don't know. I'm not a game balancer. Obelisk, probably, maybe Obelisk is broken and we're all just bad at using it, you know? Locothunk is obviously Jesus Christ himself, but... Then we get to Matador. So originally, this video was entirely about Matador, right? I was going to talk about, you know, Matador and a couple other Jokers, but I really wanted to highlight on some other Jokers I thought were more interesting, because Matador is just bad, right? Matador works on these bosses. The Window, which is the head, Club, Goad, Plant, Pillar, Flint, Eye, Mouth, Psychic, Arm, Ox, and Verdant Leaf. That is 13 out of 28 bosses. Now, before I read off what Matador does, for anyone that doesn't know, that alone should give you a red flag on what this Joker does. If it only works on 13 out of 28 bosses, that's bad. You earn $8 if played hand triggers the boss blind. Now, that's not insignificant money if you are able to do it well. On, say, the head, the Window, the Club, and the Goad, which are all of the suit bosses that turn off the suits, you basically just play one card of the disabled suit and you'll get $8, right? It's not the worst there. But that doesn't happen often. In fact, that happens 4 out of 28 times. And it only gets a chance to trigger 13 out of 28 times. So, yeah, and it also, I do have to point out that the way that it works on the Ox is you have to play the hand that sets your money to 0 to get the $8. So realistically, it only works on 12 out of the 28 bosses. You do get the $8 afterwards, so you don't go to 0, but that's not good. It doesn't even work on the Tooth. The Tooth is, you know, a very iconic boss. It takes all of your money away if you're playing a lot of hands or you're playing a lot of cards. Matador doesn't even work on the Tooth, where it would be arguably really, really good to help prevent the money loss from the Tooth. So Matador has already been like shortlisted as this is going to get changed by Locothunk in the update when it does come out. So I mean, it's not unfair to say Matador's probably is the worst Joker in the game. Like, I know a lot of people like to say, oh, maybe this is bad or maybe this is bad. If your Joker is already being said this is going to get reworked because it doesn't function properly in the game, then it's definitely one of the worst. And it's just, that's what makes it weird, you know, is the fact that it doesn't function properly. The game just doesn't have enough scenarios where Matador works. I assume what Locothunk is going to do is a way to make Matador more consistent. I doubt he's just gonna, you know, flat buff it, right? He's not gonna be like, oh, okay, now Matador gives $16, right? Because that would be actually absurdly high rolly, right? But I don't know. It's just, it doesn't inspire anything in me, you know? Like some Jokers, you know, like, oh, this is kind of bad, but I could maybe see if it gets a little number tweak, it could be pretty decent, right? Like, say, 8-Ball, right? If 8-Ball went to 2 out of 4, or well, I guess 1 out of 2 instead of 2, it probably wouldn't be the worst. You know, it would be a lot better with Oops All Sixes, or, you know, things like that, right? But Matador is just doesn't function in the game. And that's the problem. Doesn't work, doesn't do anything on the smaller big blind also. I do have to point that out. So it has a 13 out of 28 chance to work, which is less than 50%. Actually only 12. I do have to point that out. And it only works on 8 rounds total. I guess, or more, but for the most part, you only want to talk about things through the 8 stakes. It's just very awkward Joker. And it's also an uncommon Joker, so it's not even like you can just find it pretty commonly and then just say, oh, I did find the boss that it's good against, and then I can use it. Like, maybe if it were a common Joker so you could find it more easily, it would probably be a bit better, but I don't know. Then we have Campfire. So Campfire is like Madness in the way that it is one of the few Jokers that gets better at a higher stake. Campfire relies on being able to sell and buy and sell very cheap cards so that you don't really lose that much money, right? You can get the clearance sale vouchers to make it easier to use, or alternatively, you can play on Gold Stake. Gold Stake adds rental Jokers, which make it so that they buy and sell for $1, right? They do cost $3 at the end of the round, but if you just sell it for the end of the round, it'll be free. That means that Campfire, which gains times 0.25 molt for each card sold, also resets when the blind is defeated. That means that Campfire can actually, pretty consistently hit times 3, times 4, maybe even times 5 molt each round, right? Campfire is, of course, a very expensive Joker in the likes of, say, like Constellation, or, red card's also very expensive. There's a lot of very expensive Jokers in this game, but it's not the strongest due to the fact that it resets. I'm not sure why it needs to reset. I think you just lower the number a little bit, but there's probably, I do think this card was nerfed from when it came out originally. I don't remember. I have to be honest. I played not much Balatro in the first patch, and I don't know much about the original balance patch. I probably should talk about that at some point. But Campfire, if you're getting it to like times 3 molt each round, buying and selling like rentals or planets, etc., it's just decent. It has an interesting synergy with Astronomer, I believe it's called, the one that makes it so your planets and celestial packs are free. So you can actually buy the planet and then sell it for positive money with Astronomer, which is really funny, for the Campfire skills well there. Or if you have, blue seals, it could work, or, purple seals, etc. Like, Campfire just, it scales decently, into the late game, 3 or 4 molt, if you're where you're trying to aim for at least. And, Gold Stake just works pretty well with Campfire, honestly. I've probably won more runs with Campfire than I've lost with it. Or in Gold Stake, which definitely proves that it's not a bad Joker, if anyone has been wondering, because it is awkward, right? It changes the way you think about the game. A lot of the time, you're not really just buying things to sell it, right? You're buying things because you want to actually use them, and you don't want to waste money. But Campfire, being expensive as it is, does make it so you're typically going to be losing a lot of money to make it work. And then you're pretty happy with the end result, I do have to say. Seance, it's interesting. If Poker Hand is a straight flush, create a random spectral card. Now, I talked about before with Four Fingers about how not easy it is to create straight flushes when you don't have, Four Fingers specifically. It requires, of course, a lot of deck fixing in the sense that you have to make your entire deck one suit, or have, I guess, Smear Joker or something like that. And you have to make it so your deck is set up for straights. So, two things that, are already relatively hard on their own. Usually when you're saying, I'm setting my entire deck up for flushes or entire deck up for straights, you're doing one at a time. So having to do both makes Seance very hard to use. Or, of course, just get lucky and have an additional utility Joker, which isn't great to have too many utility Jokers, especially not good ones, like Seance. Now, after all of that work, what do you get? A random spectral card. Now, I have made a video on this about random spectral cards. The vast majority of them are actively bad, I do have to say. Getting Ectoplasm in a spot where it isn't good for you, especially straight flushes, bad. Getting Ouija and, converting your hand to a random suit and then losing one hand size, bad, especially for straight flushes. There's Wraith, which could be bad. There's Hex, which could be bad. There's Ankh, which could be bad. There's Immolate, which is, of course, amazing, actually. But, that is the thing. That is the upside, right? Random spectral cards, usually when you buy a spectral pack, you're kind of skipping the pack, right? That's typically what happens. So, yeah. There are some good hits, right? The Deja Vu for the red seal, Trance for the blue seal, Medium for the purple seal, Talisman for the gold seal. All of those are great. Immolate is, of course, the best spectral card just in general. It gives you, it destroys, card, I think it's 5 cards and then gives you $20. Wraith isn't terrible if you have no money. It gives you a random rare Joker, but it takes all your money. But that's the thing. A lot of the spectral cards have downsides, which means that you're kind of giving yourself, a bomb that you don't want. And, that can be very dangerous. So, that makes that, it makes, a Joker like Seance incredibly dangerous to have. On top of the fact that Seance doesn't do anything, right? It doesn't help you score, and that's not great. I do have to point out that, Seance is one of the only ways to generate a spectral card that you can actually, hold. It's Seance, Sixth Sense, or Own It, or a Ghost deck. Every other way to generate a spectral card is either spectral packs. You can randomly get, Black Hole or Soul from like their respective packs. You could get like Omen Globe, right? But you can't add spectral cards to your consumable slot without those three ways: Seance, Sixth Sense, and Ghost Deck. So why is that important? Perkio. I cannot deny that, Seance does make it a little bit easier to hit like a Naninf attempt on non-Ghost Deck or Plasma Deck, because if you hit Cryptid with Perkio from Seance, okay, yeah, you can do that. Is that amazing and consistent and happening every game? Not even remotely. Probably not even every 1,000 games. Probably not even every 10,000 games of Balatro does that happen. So, yeah. Then there's Red Card. So, I've said throughout this video multiple times that the Jokers that I'm talking about kind of change the way that you think about the game. Red Card gives you +3 molt, or gains +3 molt whenever a booster pack is skipped. Now, a lot of the time, you're only buying booster packs because you actually want what's in them, right? Actually, no. A lot of the times when you're buying booster packs, you're hoping that you want what's in them. But that doesn't happen very often. I can't tell you how many times I've opened like a Buffoon pack or a Mega Buffoon pack, and I've gotten literally not a single useful thing. They'll either be Eternal or Perishable or Rental or just a bad Joker in general. And Red Card actually kind of makes it so you're not... That's not fair. Red Card, you're kind of... When you have Red Card, you actively want to look for a skip, right? It kind of raises the bar on what you want to take out of a pack. Obviously, on Gold Stake, which most people are playing on, I find, you are going to be skipping a lot of your Buffoon packs, or mostly your Spectral packs, or kind of a lot of your Celestial packs aren't that useful. And when you're not getting a useful thing out of like a Celestial, Spectral, or Arcana pack, then it kind of is better to get +3. Like, if my Arcana pack is like, Tower Lovers and the Sun, and I'm not playing a deck that makes any use out of any of those, then Red Card +3 molt is just better. On top of the fact that, like, Red Card is kind of one of the better ways to get flat molt from a Joker in the game. This is something I've noticed recently from playing, is that, like, I find it actually kind of not easy to get a lot of flat molt from my Jokers. Usually almost all my flat molt is coming from my planets, and while that can be good, there's times where that doesn't happen, or where you're not playing a build where your hand, like the hand itself, matters. So getting flat molt from your Jokers is like very, very valuable, which means that, Red Card being one of the best ways to do that, because I mean, realistically, if you're not skipping your shops, you're getting 2 packs every shop, and if you have good enough money, which Red Card is expensive, I do have to admit, it's a very expensive Joker. If you do have enough money, you're gonna get, +6 molt. And while that isn't amazing, that's more than, say, Spare Trousers would give you if you play, only 2 hands per round. Of course, Red Card does have additional benefits, right? If you get a Mega Pack where where it gives you 2 choices, you can take the first choice, or any choice, I guess, and then skip, and Red Card will still give you the +3, making it actually pretty good. And we've all had those scenarios where we get a Mega Pack and there's one good option, so it's not like that's like an unrealistic scenario. Otherwise, it's just a solid Joker. It's not hard to find. It's a common, I believe. It's just pretty good. And if you've skipped it because you're like, oh, it's not that great, or you're like, oh, $4 for 3 molt, it's not great, it's not necessarily just that. Because you're gonna have, X molt. It's probably more realistically like $4 for 9 molt, which is pretty actually worth it, I would say. Throwback. As the chart on this very slide says, skipping fucking sucks. Now, I don't know if I'm on the left side or the right side of the chart, but skipping does suck, okay? Times 0.25 molt for each blind skip this run. That's what Throwback reads. So, Throwback is the only Joker in the game with direct synergy with skipping. There are Jokers that do work with skipping, right? Say, Ancient Joker or Idol, right? Where they change each round, which means if you skip, they have a soft synergy, but this is, of course, a direct synergy, right? And you get times 2.5 molt for that. So, you know what other Joker is better than that? madness, and you don't have to skip. When you skip, you lose out on a lot of things. You lose out on any scaling your jokers might have. You lose out on any money you might gain from your jokers, or discarding, or enhanced cards, or steals, etc. You lose any money that you would get from the round in general. You lose the shop that you get. So that's like 5 things that you lose to get what? Times 0.25 mole. On average, I find the money that you would have made from just your hands and the shop itself, etc., is pretty much better than that. The one thing that Throwback is good for is the achievement where you want to only play 12 rounds. Obviously, it's good there, right? Because you want to skip for that, because you can't play 12 rounds in, you know, an 8 ante game that has 3 rounds per ante. That doesn't make sense, right? You have to play every boss, so that's already 8 there. So you probably only play, like, the first 2. Anyway, it can be good there, but I mean, you'd have to skip, like, 6 rounds, I want to say, before Throwback really starts mattering. So that's a lot of money. I that's like probably close to like $30 or $40 minimum that you're skipping. That's 6 shops that you're skipping. That's 6 rounds of like scaling, etc. that you're skipping, just for like what? Times 1.5 mult? Yeah. What a Joker. It's such an unbelievably terrible Joker. Skipping also sucks, okay? Because, like, I know, I got keyboard warriors they're like, hey guys, but what about if you get the negative tag? Oh, but what about the negative tag, Mr. YouTuber? What about the negative tag, Mr. YouTuber? What about the negative tag, Mr. PowerPoint YouTuber? The negative tag is terrible. The negative tag is, like, not even one of the better tags. You know, I mean, the best tag is objectively investment tag. Then the double your money one is very good as well. That one's, like, really good. The double your money up to 40. Negative tag is really bad. You have rental, eternal, and perishable, which are all like 30% chance to happen. You're not guaranteed even like a remotely good Joker. And like, there are some Jokers that actively can hurt your run, like for like specific runs you're going, right? So the negative tag is bad, like very bad. I've said this before, the best use case for the negative tag is to play Anaglyph deck. You take the negative tag and you just take a bunch of negative Jokers to specifically get gold sticker on. That's the best use case for negative tag. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. This is like an interesting video because there's a lot of Jokers on here I just never really had a good chance to talk about, and that's kind of why I threw them together, right? I just want to really talk about a lot of these Jokers because they're interesting, or like they're not, I guess they're really bad, or for whatever reason. Anyway, what do you guys think the weirdest Jokers are in Balatro? Any that I had on here, maybe I missed something about these, any that you think are weirder, or it should be definitely mentioned in, like, in the annals of history about how weird Balatro is. Yeah. Anyway, my socials are there on the screen or down in the description. You can join my Discord. We talk about Balatro. We talk about basically anything under the sun. Talk about rivals. Talk about Hearthstone. Talk about, you know, basically anything. If you want to join a community, I will see you guys in there. And yeah, that's going to be it for me. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.